I'm going to hand over to James.
Okay, you're going to put it on record. Well, I'll carry on. Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much. I'll introduce myself quickly because that takes quite a bit of time. How many people? 31 people, a long time. My name's James Hurford. I'm Division Director E, District 71. That's the Midlands of the UK. But my actual club is actually in Division H, which is in Peterborough, not far from Bedford, Cranfield. So I live in Division H, but I am Division Director E for the Midlands. Now, I have quite a bit of experience with both programs, Speechcraft and Youth Leadership. But strangely enough, not in this country. I started my Toastmasters career in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm not South African, but that's where I started Toastmasters in 2014. And I've done about 8 youth leadership programs at schools in Cape Town. Fantastic, great fun. They develop so fast, and I'm going to tell you about that. And probably 8 to 10 Speechcraft programs as well for corporates in Cape Town in South Africa. I've done them online and physically. So I know a bit about it, but there's some people here like Brendan who know a lot more than I do, and Daniel as well. So we feed off each other. This is not about me lecturing you or anything. It's just giving you some ideas. Now, obviously, because we have Toastmasters and the kits, first of all, I'm going to tell you about the kits. I'm going to share my screen. If you don't know about this, this is the place to go first, is to get the kits. There is a youth leadership program kit that Brendan knows about, but you can get that for your club, and they're quite cheap, would I say? And in there you have a coordinator's guidebook. It tells you actually how to run a meeting and what to do. Plus you have brochures for each student. Obviously you've got to get enough brochures, one for each student. So if you've got 4 brochures and 10 students, you need more. Plus you've got certificates and evaluators forms. Also for Speechcraft, you can get the kit as well. Again, tells you everything, even leaflets to advertise the Speechcraft, plus a coordinator's manuals and a manual for each learner. So you can actually look at everything in there and it will tell you how to run it. So I'm not going to actually talk about specifics of running the course because you can read about it and do it, but I'm going to give you the tips and the experience that I learned from actually doing it, because I think that's more valuable than just reading about it. Okay. Now, youth leadership, basically it's mainly for schools, young learners. That's what it's for. I'm going to close this off. Get back to the gallery view. For young learners, mainly under 18. When you're a Toastmaster, you can't join Toastmasters if you're younger than 18, but you can run a youth leadership program. I'll stop sharing my screen. And that's what youth leadership is about. And they are 8 sessions, 8 1 to 2 hour sessions, 1 a week. That's how we did it. And I did it at Curo School in Cape Town, Fairmont School, El Shaddai School with other coordinators. And the best way to do it is there's got to be a minimum of 2 of you to run a program. Don't run either of these programs on your own. That's my advice. It's too much, especially if you've got 15 students. Right? Minimum 2, plus you can bring in other speakers from your club or other clubs that you know to give short educationals throughout the week program. Does that make sense? So don't try and run these on your own. I think that Brendan might back me up on that one. I didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And youth leadership is a fantastic, just for those people who haven't run this before, just to give you an overall view of it. Students, somebody mentioned not younger than 9. I'd agree with that, even though I have seen some very good 9-year-old speakers. My daughter blew them away at the age of 7. So how did she do it? But I would go for students. I've mainly done the students, given this to students 12 years upwards, 14 years upwards to 18. Also, I wouldn't have them too much of a mixed age group from 9 to 18. That's too much again. If they're all about 9, 10 years old, fine. If they're all between, say, 14 and 18, fine. But don't mix up too much because there'll be two vastly different levels. The youth leadership programs I've run, they're all about 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And a tip for you. I loved youth leadership. If you run it well, these students are not like us. They learn super fast. You know, you tell them one thing, bang, they've got it and they're doing it. How we ran the youth leadership was the first session, the first meeting, kind of given a demo meeting, like one speech, one evaluation, table topics. That's what the basis of youth leadership is based on, how Toastmasters is run. Yeah. But the trick is, on the first meeting, as it says in the coordinator's guide, you get them to run the meetings. In the first meeting, what we did was they voted in who was going to be president, who was going to be VPE, who was going to be sergeant at arms, just like at normal Toastmasters meetings. And all of you should know how that's run, so I don't have to tell you that. They vote in the members for the first week, first 4 weeks, and then you change them all again for the last 8 sessions. So they all get, everybody there gets a go at being taken on a roll. But by the end of the first session, believe me, and it is possible, those students are running the meeting. Amazing, absolutely amazing. They'll just go up, take the podium, and speak to their friends and their sergeant at arms, president, everything. And from that point, my tip is to step back. Step back in the background. You're a facilitator, you're a coordinator. You're naturally not there to speak. Now, this is the big tip I'm going to give you today. If you get any tip out of this, it's when you're on the youth leadership or Speechcraft, it's different to speaking. It's a different skill. At Toastmasters, you're there to learn to speak. With youth leadership and Speechcraft, you're there to let the learners speak. You're just there as a guide. You're not there to speak yourself. Because a lot of Toastmasters I know, especially experienced Toastmasters, love the sound of their own voices. And that's what you're not going to do. You've got to step in the background, let them speak. And if they struggle, well, pause or look at you. You've got to be like a teacher. You just give them golden nuggets and get them going again. So the skill of running a youth leadership program is different to being a speaker. And if you have empathy, you'll do well, just like a teacher. If you don't, not so well. So it's a different skill to learn. It's a fantastic skill if you've got it. I actually believe there are some people who are natural trainers and some people who aren't. And you've got to admit it and say, I'm not in some cases, or I am. Yeah. When you run a youth leadership program, you always do it with a teacher there. What I did at, say, Curo School would have a key teacher who we sold the program into, not selling, the idea into, and they would have to be at every meeting, again in the background. Yeah. So that's how it runs. And after session 1, they're running the whole meeting, pretty much like a Toastmasters club. And believe me, you'll be amazed at how good the speeches are within just a few weeks. They put you to shame. They go, wow, how they did that. At the end of it, you do 8 weeks. The youth leadership, you can't really change that program. You go for the whole 8 weeks, and the last program is what we call the gala night. In those 8 weeks, you'll do body language, speech structure, all the things you learn on your CC10. Do you remember that? Yeah, your CC10. All the basics of Toastmasters is there. So it's not unfamiliar to what you're doing now in your club. All you got to do is get them to do it and not you. All right? And at the last night is the best night, gala night, where they invite the teachers, the parents, the friends. They kind of present it and they run that meeting and they give each other, make speeches, they give each other awards, just the same as you would do in a normal Toastmasters meeting. I really call the youth program for kids like Toastmasters on steroids. It's that fast. If you like speed, if you like to see people grow super fast and actually put you to shame because they're speaking better than you, do the leadership program. And that's why Brendan Houghton loves it. He's done it. Wouldn't you agree, Brendan? You can say something here.
Yes, absolutely. You get huge satisfaction out of doing it. And also, if I can give you an example, when I go up to the Holy Family School just up the road from me, and there's some of the kids there that did it in their intercert or the earlier years, they still recognize your name. They come up to you, they say, hello, Brendan, how are you? It's like that, really personal friends out of it. It's fantastic.
It is fantastically satisfying to see them grow if you're of that nature. Some people aren't. Don't do it if you're not. Do it if you like to do that kind of thing and like to see people grow. So there are my tips. And I've also had a couple of more tips from Brendan, actually, because I've never done a youth leadership program online. And I was amazed to find that it has actually happened and is happening actually in Ireland. And there are a couple of tips about having a youth leadership program online that Brendan gave me. One is you cannot run a Zoom youth leadership program from your bedroom to another child's bedroom. I don't know if I explain that, do I? That's an obvious one. And also, every child should have their parent or guardian there with them on Zoom in the background. They don't have to speak. You don't want the parents to speak. Plus, you have to get permission from the school for each child. What we did when we organised physical meetings with the schools in Cape Town, we would get the teacher to organise the kids who wanted to, we didn't call them kids, students who wanted to go onto the programme. They would have a list. The teacher at the school would formulate the list of the students, not you. So there'd be about, we'd normally have about 15 around there. I wouldn't do over 20, it gets too big. Ideal size, between 10 and 15 people. We can run at 8 people. It's like a Toastmasters club. If it gets too small, it's difficult. 10 to 15 is just right. But get the teacher to get the students signed up. She keeps all the email addresses. She sees who signed up. And the program actually, when you take on a school, they don't supposed to not pay for the program. It's supposed to be sponsored by your club, right? So it's your club, and I did it for Winans Club in Cape Town. Winans Club sponsored the youth leadership program at the local schools. So you pay for it. The school actually did donate money to the club. They're allowed to do that. But it's officially sponsoring the program. Brendan, is that what you did in Ireland?
Well, some of the things that I found best about it were you need to have different forms of communication and change your delivery to have it right for the age group and the mix of pupils that you have. Something I found very useful in particular was to have boys and girls together if they're in the school. And when you have that, you divide them up, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, before doing what you said, and get them to introduce themselves, elect their people, introduce themselves, and let them run it. Then you disappear off over to the side or back to the back. What I used to do is have one person to the side and the second person at the very back. And that way you could tell that you can hear them, and you can drop a little nugget to them or a sign to sort of speak or so up or so. You know, it's just common sense with them. Treat them tenderly, treat them with care, treat them with respect, and they will reciprocate that to you. And we've had some incredible results from it. I always say I had my youngest son is downstairs. He's a student in third year engineering now. I spent a lot of money on him going to a very expensive college here in Dublin. And in the school for the deaf, which is a DES or free school, they competed in the Irish company formation, the school projects, which included a communications element in it. And the school for the deaf every year came third or better in that contest throughout Ireland. They beat
Fantastic.
the best schools in Ireland by and large. They actually won it a couple of times as well. So they're incredible. They will certainly warm your heart. And could I also say, well, any people who are from Ireland listen to this, if they want to contact me, do please anytime. I think you have my details up there, and I can help them out, and I can help them to make presentations to schools. Over to you.
Brendan and Daniel Sanders are both fantastic fonts of information about the Youth Leadership Programme. Do tap them up and for their experience about youth leadership in Ireland and England. Just going back to what Brendan said about confidence, because somebody here tonight spoke about confidence. This is the Youth Leadership Programme, one of the best ways to build confidence in anybody. Let's talk about young people, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I've been on the programme where these students didn't even want to say their name. They're just there. They just go, I don't know what to say. They're shaking. But by the end of, if you encourage, it's what Brendan said, you've got to have a skill at being kind and compassionate with the students, saying, give it a try. You've got to be patient and give it a try. Encourage them. And once they do, bam, they're off. They're within 6 weeks, they turn around and say, I can't believe how well I'm speaking. That's not me. They're talking about themselves, how well they're speaking. That's actually how it works. So there was someone here tonight, I think, talking about something rehab. I think it was an island, wasn't it? And I think it was Bernie, wasn't it? It was. It's a fantastic way to build confidence in young people. They do just the same as Toastmasters. They write their own speeches. They can write on anything. You have the manual as a guide to what they have to learn or achieve at every meeting. Okay, you have one, you divide it up, you have one speaker and they have an evaluator from, because you're not going to be the evaluator, you get another student to evaluate them, and that's how it goes on. Okay, so they, just like a Toastmasters meeting, they're helping each other. It's not you as a facilitator, and it's not the second facilitator, it's them running it. And they give evaluations, and some fantastic ones, fantastic, and they've never done it before in their lives. So yes, Justin.
Just from a practical perspective, James, it sounds like a bit of coaching going on here, which reminds me of a class that I taught under junior achievement. So are you saying that when you step back, right, are you essentially obviously allowing the meeting to take place, the students that are running the meeting fully engaged doing that, but then in terms of the learnings from that, do you finish off the session with like a general evaluation? It's not a general evaluation in that meeting, but you're giving some feedback at the end. How are people learning from your observations? What's the best way to give feedback during those sessions?
Yes, and yes, you can design it as you want, actually. as I said, you don't want to take over the meeting yourself, but you're there as a coach is a good way of saying it, a guide. Okay, and you give little golden nuggets. Even after they've given an evaluation, you can stand up and go, what about that? You know, or try that. And they go, okay, next one, boom, and it goes on. You've got to keep the pace as well. You've got to keep, kids get bored very quickly. You've got to keep it fast. And another way that we used to keep it, have the educational side, we brought in other Toastmasters to give an educational speech for 5 to 7 minutes, maybe about body language or maybe about nervousness. The best thing to do is ask the students what they want. They'll tell you. They'll say, oh, well, I don't know how to construct a speech. Okay, you bring in, if you don't want to give that talk, bring in somebody else, you want to pick on somebody in your club, bring them in and make them do it. And they want to speak to somebody outside their own club, to students, that's the place to do it. So every week we used to have an educational, and I've done it in other people's youth leadership programs. They've asked me to give an educational. So when I wasn't running it, so they can learn a hell of a lot. Does that make sense, Justin? Yeah. So it's quite fast paced, and yes, it is a different skill. Anything else? We'll go on to Speechcraft because Rona.
James, can I just ask a quick question? Do you have to get each educational speaker vetted before they go to each school or into a classroom?
No, the Toastmasters is not. This is a supportive. I only read this afternoon as well. It's a supportive program, and they don't have to be. Is it called CAEA vet? They don't need that,
Okay.
but you must have the teacher in the classroom or on Zoom, and or the parent must be there. You cannot do it one-to-one on Zoom without a parent or guardian. That's why you don't need vetting. The parent or guardian has to be there. Or if it's physical, the teacher has to be at the back of the room. That's how we did it.
Thanks for clarifying. Thank you.
So it's all organised by the school. Anything else before I'll go on to Speechcraft? We're running out of time. No?
Just so online, do you really need to have a shorter session then, really, for it to be effective? Or did you say like eight 2-hour sessions? I mean, that sounds like a long time online. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, you can make them shorter. I think you tailor make them to fit you. There's not, in the manuals, the guide to how it's structured. And you can shorten it. You can shorten it or take something out if you want to take something out. It's not, yes, it's all written down in the guides, in the manuals and in the guide, but it doesn't mean to say you can't take something out. In fact, that's what I do on my youth leadership. You've got to think on your feet. If you don't have that skill of being like, if you don't like table topics, don't do this. I can tell you that, don't do it. If you want to get a taste of what, carry on.
No, you finish your sentence and I'll come in.
If you want to get a taste of what youth leadership is, it's rather like this tonight. You get everybody else to speak and not you. Daniel.
Yes, James. I'll have another call starting shortly, but I think Moira will be able to continue Zoom hosting. How long do you think you need to deal with Speechcraft?
15 minutes, 20 minutes. We'll go through that. It's a similar thing.
I'll be here on the background, and it'd be nice to take a group photo shot at some point during the meeting. Maybe even now if you want to get your cameras on. 2 tips about Speechcraft. The graduation gala at the end is a fantastic public relations opportunity to get the students' peers in. And if you're teaching Speechcraft within the club, you can use the fee you charge them to make them members, and hopefully they will continue their subscription after you've done a very good job. And that's particularly useful if your club's struggling for numbers next June, is to start a Speechcraft program and set it up so that the 8 to 10 Speechcrafters become members of 6 months. That's a bit of a cynical game to play, but it works. And in terms of charging for Speechcraft, Toastmasters International don't like you to charge more than what it would cost that person to join a club anyway. You're not out there to make a killing and compete with professional trainers. Okay, I hand back
Thank
to
you,
you,
Daniel.
James.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll give you an outline now of Speechcraft. The way I've done Speechcraft is actually mainly for corporate businesses. That's how I've done it. I know you can use Speechcraft in other ways with Toastmasters, but that's how I've done it. I can only speak about my experience. So it's Toastmasters for corporates, for businesses. Okay, is one way. I know you can do it other ways. And the way I did it was, again, with 2 facilitators, myself, definitely somebody else. And you could do it for 6 or 8 sessions. My preferred time is 6 weeks because they get a bit bored after that. They don't have the patience. And that's what I found. Speechcraft is a honed down Toastmasters meeting, stripping away the formalities. I actually love it, probably more than anything, because you know all the formalities of Toastmasters with all the gavel and everything like that, you just take that all out. It's purely speeches, evaluations, you do table topics. Again, you set up the meeting, the first session, you kind of give them a demo meeting the first session time you meet them. You'll bring in other Toastmasters to make a speech, an evaluation, table topics, how it's run. You don't necessarily have to have a grammarian, R counter, or anything like that, but you do have to have a timekeeper. That could be yourself as a facilitator, which I did, just having cards, red, yellow, green, 5 to 7 minutes off. And everything else you could take away. Corporates like that. They don't like the formality of it. And after the first demo meeting, they get the idea of what they've got to do. Then they follow the manual. And you say, right, the next meeting, these 6 people, you make a speech. The other 6 people, you evaluate them. That's how it runs. And if you've got extra time, what I used to do is then a table topic session. And believe me, the beauty of Speechcraft is people, particularly in corporates, and we've all been there. I mean, I did corporate for many years working in London. They can talk a good game, but when you actually put them on the spotlight to speak, that's when they start to crumble. Yeah, they can sit there in a meeting and go, yeah, I think this and that. Okay, right, get at the front there and tell us. Boom, the whole atmosphere changes. The whole vibe changes, the whole thing. Because they suddenly go, oh, what am I going to say now? And these can, I mean, Speechcrafts is obviously different to youth leadership. These people are at work. Most of them are younger than me, I can tell you that. They'll be in their 20s, in their 30s, you know, on the computers. We did it at one company in Cape Town. I couldn't believe it. There 200 people work there, right? And they all sit behind the computers. It's dead quiet. Computer people don't talk to each other. I thought, what is going on here? No wonder they need Speechcraft, because they can't talk to each other. Unbelievable. So you get them in the room. You've got the coordinator's guide, which you read. You give them all a manual, and you follow that manual, and you time them, just like a Toastmasters meeting. Again, the trick is 2 facilitators, you and another person. Don't do it on your own. And step back. Again, facilitate. Yes, after speeches, you can get up and give a golden nugget of information. That's what they like. And then you move on. Okay. They don't have a gala evening at the end like youth leadership program. It's just straight 6 weeks. And they follow that. Again, in a program, it'll be stagecraft, voice and tone, structuring a speech, just like the CC manual. You've all seen that. What you got in pathways. Yeah. What is so nice about Speechcraft? Again, it's fast. It's fast. They've only got 6 weeks. I did the programs at lunchtimes at a corporate, and then we'll do it in 1.5 hours. So you don't get a break. Or if they do, just a quick coffee and they're at it. Trick is, don't get them to wing it either. They've got to write their speeches. Some of them tend to wing it. But you pick up that, you can tell it when they're winging it. Again, same structure, 5 to 7 minute speeches. They evaluate. I don't evaluate as a facilitator. You get them to evaluate the speeches. And again, I've seen them terrified. They won't even get out of the seat to come at the front. But by the end of 6 weeks, it changes, and their speaking comes on tremendously. So is that a good outline of Speechcraft? Anybody want to add anything to that? Any questions? Nigel? No?
James, I have one question. Is there a certification we can get to use on the Speechcraft program that doesn't include success communication and success leadership series?
What do you mean a certification? For who?
To give participants at the end of the training.
To give the participants?
Yeah.
Well, you give them certificates. They love that.
The only one I have is one that's splashed all over the front of it: success communication and success leadership. We don't want to be mentioning the, leadership on the Speechcraft program. So I'm just wondering if there was one, because otherwise we're going to have to make one up ourselves. But I just thought there might be one. There used to be one in the old days.
I think you could make one up yourself. They actually do like certificates, surprisingly enough, even adults. I was bowled away by that when I found that out. Karen.
How do you get people to write their speech and then move to cheat notes or little cards to prompt themselves and stay on track rather than just winging it? We have a lot of people that just will write a speech in their head on their way home from work, and then they give it. And I don't think that's good.
Yeah, well, I was right what I say, because I've experienced that. Some do. Well, you tell them off when they do, because I can tell when somebody gets up and wings it. Within 2 minutes, within a minute, I know they're winging it. They're just making it up as they go along. And what they tend to do is run over time when they're winging it. You don't tell people off. It's just the same as a Toastmasters meeting. You can't criticize people. You just recommend.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, don't wing it. I've seen people outside Toastmasters making presentations in advertising, which I used to be in, winging it. They're fired. They're fired because the client knows it. They're out the door. So it's a different thing in companies, in business. If you talk money, talk jobs, they'll suddenly sit up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, what about the evaluations? Do you do evaluations in Speechcraft? Speech evaluations?
Yeah, they do it.
Surely that would pick it up.
Sorry?
That should, if they're done correctly, evaluations should pick up if somebody's not doing a speech correctly.
Yes. Speechcraft runs in the similar way without the formalities of Toastmasters. Let's say you've got 12 learners. You say, right, six speeches next week, and the other 6 you give evaluations, and then you change it every week. You change it around, so you got different 6 speeches, different 6 evaluations, and they give evaluations. And obviously, you get different standards of evaluations. They're all learning straight off. And if somebody doesn't give a good evaluation, or they don't pick up the wing in it, you get up yourself, because you're the facilitator. Not aggressively. You go around the front and stand next to them. Go, did you wing that? And they go, yeah, I did. Ah, naughty boy. You know, if you
like
did
the
that.
general evaluator. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though you're the facilitator, you do get up there and say a few things, but don't take over the whole meeting. You'll just say, yeah, I think maybe you missed something on your evaluation. If you said that, they go, oh yeah. So you're working as a team. You're not working alone when you're doing it. You're working with them. Yeah. One thing I would like to say, if you want more members at your clubs all over the world, we've got Ireland, we've got Scotland, we've got everywhere here, we've got Canada, do a Speechcraft in a company or an organisation. Doesn't have to be a business, could be an organisation, could be county council if you like. Do a Speechcraft. Like somebody said today, they hear the clapping, it's like moths to a light, and they go, I want to try that. And some people go, I don't want to try that. And you know they're scared. But if you want to build a club and get new members, that's one definite way to do it. It's fast, positive, because you've got people involved. There's no better way to explain Toastmasters and getting people to do it. Just as I said earlier on, when people are sitting around, they're all, yes, oh, I know that, I know how to speak. Okay, right, you get them to speak. They're in the spotlight, changes completely, instantly. And this cannot be putting pressure on people. You know, if you want somebody to keep quiet, right, stick them at the front. Brilliant. But that's how you'll get new members very quickly. The courses, I said, I run them for 6 weeks. It's ideal. You can run it for 4, a bit too short. I think 8 weeks is too long. 6 weeks, and you could get new members at your club. Definitely. That's what we did. And we actually charged, don't know what Daniel's not there anymore. He can't hear me. We charged, actually. We charged. And that money went, you can charge for Speechcraft, but not excessively. But that went into the club and boosted the club funds, and then you can do another one. Yeah. But corporates, really, the amount, when you think about it, the amount that we charged for a Speechcraft, 16 people, corporates, it'd be peanuts for them. They pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds for training. You don't charge that. But a few £100 in the coffers of your club, it really does help. Yeah. That means you can do another one. It means you can do youth leadership and more. We just do on and on and on. And we did them mainly, we found the best time to do Speechcraft was lunchtimes or afternoons. They don't like it in the evening, they want to go home. So I have done some Speechcrafts first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock till 9 before they start work. You know, but Cape Townians and South Africans get up early. They like early starts, but that's what we did. I used to get up there and I was doing it at 7 o'clock till 9. Then they go off to work. Does that help? Yes, Paul.
Thank you ever so much, James. My question is about getting into corporates in order to be able to offer them it. I'd like to know if you've got any tips on how to gain entry into a corporate in order to offer them the program.
Best way to do it is ask your members of your club. There's people in your club who are working and you don't know where they work. I mean, I'm the division director of the Midlands, and some of these people there, they work at Jaguar Land Rover, they work at Siemens, these big companies. You ask them where they work and say, okay, maybe you don't want a club, but maybe you could just do Speechcraft for 6 weeks. It's an easier sell. Okay, how do you do that? Right, you take it in there. Ask the people in your club and ask them to ask their friends. Say, where do you work? And it's much bigger than that. And that's actually what you do with youth leadership as well. In fact, at our club, we were always asked about, in England here, Anglia Communicators, they approached us about youth leadership. Can you come to King's School? Can you go to another school? We actually couldn't keep up with it. And Speechcraft, you just put it out. I mean, there's people in our club working for very big companies locally. And we've actually tried to say to them, do you want to start up a corporate club, Toastmasters? And they're not so keen. It's a bigger commitment, but you can easier sell in Speechcraft. Does that help, Paul?
So that's
Anybody
terrific,
else?
James. Thank you.
Great. Good to see you here. Oh, I like his haircut. It's less wild. I like that. It's less wild. I'll see that.
Yeah, it's brand new. Brand new.
It's normally Irish and all over the place like that. Bang! I don't recognise him now.
It's the new image.
So, it unsettles me. Anybody else? A couple of further questions. Carmel, you're far too quiet.
One other question I have, if you don't mind, James, based on my experience so far, it's a waste of time bringing in or giving the students or giving anybody, students or those manuals, because they forget them or they won't bring them in the next time or they don't even read them in the first place. So it's far better just to give them a PDF copy of a chapter for the work they're going to do the next meeting and just not confuse them with giving them a full manual, because they'll only forget it and lose it and whatever.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I like that tip. Anybody else with any quick tips?
Yeah, James. It depends on your audience, but sometimes the manual is something of tangible value that the students feel happy with, and there was very much the case at Cranfield University. They feel the department felt that it had spent its money on something, even if that implied they totally took for granted several hundred hours of training input that we were providing their students. And another one I would just pick up on the marketing. There's a girl out there called, a lady, Cheryl Roche, an accredited speaker, and she's done an awful lot for marketing Speechcraft. And if you want some help with me to link you across Facebook, she has lots of toolkits.
Now, there's a name that Daniel doesn't know I know her. So I'll tell you a secret. Cheryl Roche is actually American. She's in America. And I came across her a few years ago. She heads up actually something else, the accredited speaker program, but that's a different thing. But a very, very experienced Toastmaster and worth connecting with. I think she's been doing it about 30 years, but very good speaker. So thank you for that one. Anybody else?
I have a question. It's Miriam here. I don't know if I missed this at the beginning, but are there any requirements that the facilitators need to meet before we can actually run any of these sessions?
Are you talking? No. We did mention earlier.
Pathway. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
That's okay. I'll mention it again. Youth leadership program, because it's a supportive training program, you have to have a teacher in the background at every meeting physically and on Zoom, even on Zoom. Okay, but they can't be in everybody's house. But a parent or guardian has to be there in the meeting on every student. So if you have that and the permission from school and all the teachers given permission, you don't need any certification. I think there's all these legal things, isn't there? You don't need that. Yes, Karen.
Is she asking about the qualifications for the Toastmaster? They need to have a little bit of a few months into their club before they strike out.
Yeah, well, you have to complete a certain pathway, sort of like a level or anything like that.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't advise it if you're a brand new Toastmaster. It's quite a hectic thing to do. I would say the lead facilitator, because you're going to want two, would have to be probably best if you've been doing it a year, 2 years, capable of running it, because it's quite nerve-wracking if you're not confident and you've got new students. They're like the sniffer dog. They'll know if you're unconfident. They'll pick it out. They'll go, well, we know better than you. And you're sitting there going, oh my word, you don't want to do that. So you go with an experienced Toastmaster, maybe somebody who's done it before, preferably, or, you get Brendan will help you out. I'll help you out. Daniel, people like that. And probably the best thing to do is to go as that second facilitator, unless you've done it before. Yeah. If you were to do it, you have to be a Toastmaster a year, maybe up to a CC10. It depends how confident you are. People can be very confident even if on there right at the beginning. It depends how confident you are.
Could I pop something in with regard to that? Where it comes to the Toastmasters going into a schoolroom, into class, most schools will, in Ireland, the school has to send your information to the Garda and give you access to the vetting program there. It's simple and they will do it readily. And when the school gets you vetted, you do not have to have a teacher in the class. The two Toastmasters can go in and manage it, but it is subject to you being pre-vetted by the Garda in Ireland, and there's a vetting scheme in the UK as well, which is available. Just a small point.
I think you're asking about how qualified you are yourself as Speechcraft. Again, it's that technique. The beauty about both these programs is, even if you're a good speaker, it doesn't mean to say you're a good trainer, and you learn how to train well. Yeah, and give it a go as well. Give it a go. try it, and you'll soon find out whether you can do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that help? Does that help?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to double check there weren't any specific requirements.
No, you don't have to be have done 10 speeches or 20 speeches. It depends how confident you are. I mean, people have done 20, 30 speeches and it doesn't mean to say they're good.
I think, James, as a rule of thumb, it's probably worth setting the same guideline as is for the international speech contest. If you've done the first 2 levels of your path, you've probably reached the point where you can begin to drive forward a project under your own steam, and it's just builds from there. Once you've done 2 paths and you're building towards your DTM, then doing a Speechcraft is a box you can tick, as well as youth leadership, as well as starting a new club and a few other little bits and bobs. But there's definitely training credit for coordinating the Speechcraft, and if you do one, make sure your Vice President of Education records it now when you've done it, because trying to find the evidence in 2 or 3 years' time when you're filing your DTM will be a long shot to the moon and back.
Yeah, but give it a go, Miriam. You can give it a go and take an experienced Toastmaster, somebody who's done it before, and then you learn off. That's how I started.
James,
programs. Yep.
James, I must say I like your emphasis on the competence of the person to run it and your ability to run it, because it's worth remembering that some people, not everybody, join Toastmasters from a background of a lot of ability, and they may not understand the Toastmasters system very well for a while, and after all, these are Toastmasters programs, but they may be very well able to facilitate such a thing, because their reason for joining Toastmasters might not be to become a better speaker. It might be to have an opportunity to learn the Toastmasters system or some other reason. So I like the way in which you're emphasizing that it's your ability and your disposition that counts more than anything else.
Definitely. For example, we've got members of Anglia Communicators. Their profession is trainer. They're trainers. That's when they join Toastmasters. You're thinking, why do they join? To speak, not to train. They learn to speak. So they could naturally now just run one of those programs. But get them to speak.
I joined after 30 years as a trainer.
There you go. But get them to speak. It's a different thing. So you have people probably in your club who are professional trainers, so they could start and run it. Yeah, definitely. And the great thing about it, you can learn off them. Yeah, without a doubt. Any other quick questions? Because it's been.
Jane, can I?
Yep. Hello, Scotland. Yes.
The participants in Speechcraft, if they go on to join the club, can they use their speeches they've done towards their pathway?
I've never heard of that. That's down to the individual club. My feeling is, well, what's the harm in starting again anyway? It's all practice. And that's how I really sold people on.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I sold people on pathways. People halfway through the old program, bronze, silver, gold, they're going, oh, I don't want to give it up and start again. So, well, it's all practice. Start again, do it. And then they just jump in and do it. It's not about award. It's not about award. It's practice.
Any idea of what the new Speechcraft program is going to be like? Have you any inkling?
No, I was only really. I'm going to point you to Daniel, because actually I only heard about it tonight from Daniel. So over to you, Daniel.
Sorry, what was the question again? I'm in 2 meetings.
Well, it was announced back in August that in the new year, early in the new year, the Speechcraft is going to be based on a version of the Pathways program. I'm just wondering, is that anywhere? Because it looks like with the lockdown over here, we're not going to be able to do any Speechcraft until then anyway, until the new year. So just wanted to make sure that we're in line with that new program, if there is any info on it.
Right. Okay. Well, what I know officially about the realignment of Speechcraft and youth leadership to the new education system, Pathways education system, is that the work is in hand. The youth leadership program has been merged with what was formerly known as the interpersonal communications kit, which teachers were allowed to buy to deliver into summer camps, schools and the like. And that will go out to pilot delivery at some point. Where Speechcraft has got to with its piloting, we don't know. However, outside of the official channels, there's a lady in Ireland called Crystal Long, who's been working as part of an international self-organized consortium to put Speechcraft online and to introduce Pathways elements to it, so that when someone who's done the 8-week Speechcraft program with the Pathways elements could probably join the club at a level 2, or certainly at a level 1, depending on their Vice President of Education. This is all a pragmatic workaround to official responses. What I would say though, the design of Pathways and the design of the old competent communicator are quite different. So if you were going to go into a situation where your primary objective is to develop the speaking skills of the recipients, you might want to stick with the traditional Speechcraft because it's a very well balanced program. As you know, the old competent communicator manual took you systematically through all of the key dynamics of public speaking skills. And Pathways takes an orthogonal approach where those skills emerge indirectly. And so a lot of people have commented that in some ways it seems less effective to do it indirectly this way through Pathways. But if your ultimate objective of delivering Speechcraft is to make them members and to bring them into your club at level 1 and level 2, then certainly you will have to hybridize with the Pathways program. And Crystal Long in Ireland, I can put you in touch with her, as last year's Speechcraft coordinator, has got all of that to hand.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Crystal. Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Anna.
Just to relate to what Tom said there for a second, the Crystal Long has begun delivering a Speechcraft program online, and the first session was on Saturday. I think I can't remember exactly how many scheduled sessions there are, but she's in Cork, and well, you would easily be able to contact her. She has publicized the Speechcraft program as well, so it's somewhere in the ether of Facebook or whatever, she's put and I will put the Speechcraft program that she's running on my division Facebook page for the future ones, so you should be able to find it as an event there.
You don't know if it's private, if it's a private one, or is it open to the public? You know, from that point of view. I
better not make a mistake. I know that it's open in terms of international participation. In other words, it's not just for people in Cork. But I better consult. I better get more information from Crystal.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Obviously gone past time, so I'm going to close the meeting. Otherwise, we'll go on all night. Yeah. Good to see everybody. I hope you got something out of it. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a really good night. I've enjoyed it.
See you again.
James, I want to thank you very
Oh,
much.
don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. The rest of my Toastmasters mug of tea.
Oh, look at that. Gosh, yeah. See you soon.
Well, thanks, James, for delivering a great